Welcome to Nat Chat. My name is Paul Spanos, and today we have an interview with Kelly Leeds, as he is a registered migration agent. The topic today, Kelly, welcome, first of all, into our program. And our topic today, our discussion will focus into student visas. It is quite popular, but at the same time, let's go around it to find out the reasons that visa exists, first of all.
Okay.
And we take it from there. Okay, as immigration, why we have those student visas, the purpose for it.
The student visa program, we could very frankly say it is a way that we export Australian education. The education that we have in Australia is high level, so we are making it available to the rest of the world. However, people that do wish to study in Australia have to meet certain requirements to be able to obtain a student visa.
Okay, when we say requirements, means from a certain level they can come as a student visa?
International courses, because not all courses are available to international students.
Okay.
They have to be licensed and registered.
Okay.
It's what we call the CRICOS or CRICOS system. So schools, education providers do get registered. Their courses are checked according to the legislation that this whole procedure runs on and the program runs on. And then the courses that they wish to offer to international students also have to follow certain requirements and meet certain requirements.
On the list of the immigration, then, we have certain schools and certain courses.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Correct.
That means I have to go through those ones before I even apply.
Well, you have to actually find the education provider that suits your needs, find the course that the education provider gives you that suits what you want to achieve.
Okay.
And you actually have to enroll before you apply for the visa.
How does this work?
Well, it's very simple. Okay.
If I enroll, then
okay, all right.
They might not approve.
It's what we call the initial enrolment. Okay, does not mean that you have started attending the school, especially if you're overseas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what happens is you go to a school, you put in an application, you state what you wish to study with them. You usually have a discussion with the school. So you put in your application, they check your CV, they check your English level, and they send you back a letter of offer as to what you should study. Now, the school believes that your English isn't at the level it should be, but your previous studies or experience shows that you can follow the specific course. They will offer you, not all schools, but most of them do have it, they can offer you an in-between, a preliminary English course that's part of your total course.
But
it's different to coming in and studying English. That's a different visa.
Okay. That means the school in itself, a university, for example, has its own criteria.
That's right. The school
in relation
decides,
to the level of English.
Yeah, the school decides if they're going to accept you.
Okay.
So once the school has given you the letter of offer, your next step is to do an initial enrolment, which usually means paying a deposit with the school against your fees.
Is this subject to acceptance from immigration?
Immigration will not accept your application for a visa, not refuse it or grant it. They will not accept it. It will be invalid if you don't have a certificate of enrolment.
Okay.
So it's a compulsory step before you can actually apply for your student visa. Okay, so the first step to do is to look at what there is for you to study.
Okay.
And how is that going to assist you in your future in building up your career? Because you also have to present all these things to immigration.
Then what is the possibility for immigration to decline my application? Obviously, has to be a very strong reason to decline my application if the school already has accepted me.
If immigration believes that your reason for applying for a student visa is not actually your studying, is one reason they will refuse you.
All right.
The other reason is if immigration concludes that you don't meet the very important part of a student visa application, the genuine temporary entrant criteria, which means the incentives that you have to return back to your home country as compared to the incentives to stay on in Australia,
Yes.
the first ones should be stronger.
Okay, isn't it a little bit intrusive somebody to ask me to come to Australia and then to ask my intentions when I just apply for a course?
Well, why do you want to do the course?
Well, I suppose to improve my qualifications.
Okay, that's a reason.
Yeah.
That's your intention.
Yeah.
But why do you want to improve your qualifications?
Obviously, if I want to study as an engineer or something, or even as an economist,
Okay.
I would like to come to one of the Australian universities.
Okay, so you believe the Australian university is going to offer you
That's
a
right.
lot more knowledge
Yeah.
and a lot more qualifications to be able to proceed in your career. That's your intention.
Yeah.
So what's difficult
okay.
in that?
All right. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, so
In that specific example that you used.
But we're saying now that the immigration really, as long as has a clear view that that's your intention for
That's right.
for studying.
That's right.
That's fine.
If you apply to come and study English in Australia and your work for the past 15, 20 years has been in a profession where English is definitely not required for any reason, and you say, I want this so I can improve myself at work, well, somewhere that doesn't fit.
Yes, that's right. So immigration has a way of identifying in case that what you say in your application doesn't match with your life.
They do. They look at your employment history, your study history. They look at a lot of factors that you need to present through that application. Okay, and they're becoming a lot more strict on actually obtaining information against those factors.
And we're going to continue our conversation discussing how people might mistreat those visas or misunderstand the use of this visa. Okay, thank you for being with us. We'll come back after the short break. Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back in our topic today with the student visa. And with us we have Kelly Leeds, and thank you for being with us, Kelly. And Kelly is a registered migration agent in Auckland, in Melbourne, and give us a little bit of light, if you like, how student visa is very, very popular and sometimes misused.
Oh, some misused. Yes, it is. Popular. Look, we do have an excellent education system in Australia, so Australian qualifications are highly regarded. So people do tend to come to our universities in order to either participate in further research, obtain better knowledge, higher skills, and so forth. So yes, it is a popular destination for studies. Misuse, I'd say maybe it's not misuse, but mainly people being misinformed about it.
Okay.
A student visa is not a migration visa. You don't migrate to study.
Okay.
You temporarily enter a country. You are given the permission to do that in order to come to this country to study, pick up your qualifications, and then go back home or wherever you want to continue your career.
In other words, the immigration I view of the student visa is not immigration visa. It's not migration visa.
Not part of that 190,000 migrants that have come into Australia a year.
Okay. So it is completely irrelevant to this.
Yes, you can say it's a visitor visa, but with extra conditions and a longer term.
Okay. And what sort of cost we're talking about? If everything, if I do not have any problem with my paperwork and I'm accepted, what sort of cost we're talking about?
The first cost you have to look at is your actual education costs, because you're obliged to be paying your fees, because if it gets reported that you're delaying your fees, you can get your visa cancelled.
Oh, okay.
You are obliged to be participating at least 80%, so no more than 20% absences, otherwise your visa can be cancelled. So the first thing you have to look at is the course.
Okay.
Okay, and that you can actually afford to be at that course.
All right.
Courses can start, yes, there are some courses for English learning, which can start around the $8,000 mark.
English courses, we're talking about English
learning
language.
English.
Learning English.
There's
okay.
5 types of student visas.
Okay.
There's English learning, there's vocational learning, then there's university studies, and then we start going to the PhD, and then there's some special ones with AusAid and so forth.
Okay.
So when you put in an application, the officer that takes your application actually assesses you against all of those visas and sees which ones you fit in. Okay, so you don't have to actually know which one you're going for.
Right. That's
okay,
right.
there are also student visas for high school students. People can come here and study high school as well. So it starts from the very first go.
Do I need to
studying.
prove that I'm able to survive in that?
You have to prove. So you have to have your fees, okay, your education fees. You have to have living expenses. These are actually set by law, okay, and that's $18,000.
All right.
For the first year that you're here, okay.
All right.
So if there's a spouse and children, that gets, of course, increased.
Paid up.
Okay. If you do have children, aged between 5 and 18 coming with you, you are obliged to have them enrolled in the school. So you've got those fees, and they're ranged from primary school to the end of high school from about $7,500 to about $11,000.
That adds up, isn't
a year.
it? Okay.
It does. Keep in mind also that as a student, and especially up to the lower levels of
education
of studies,
That's right.
you are only allowed 40 hours a fortnight of work.
Okay.
So people don't get it confused, 20 hours per week, but it's actually calculated over the fortnight.
Can this be checked out by the immigration?
Well, if you're working legally, yes. Immigration and taxation have a common barrel of information.
Okay.
They actually announced that, and they made a big show about it a couple of years ago, so people should be aware of it. Unfortunately, people have been caught out sometimes in that, you know, they may be working more than that 20 hours. Legally, they're paying their taxes on it, but then immigration gets access to the database, and they say, wait, hang on a minute, why are you working 30 hours? You're only supposed to work 20. So that can lead to cancellation. Cancellation can lead you being removed from the country, and it can lead to you actually getting a ban too, and having difficulty with future visas.
That means the immigration can follow the financial sort of status or my employment status. Can they follow my education status?
Yes. There is a system called PRISM, which is a common system between the Education Department and the Immigration Department. All registered education providers who provide studies for international students are obliged in there to note every enrolment that they make, every time a student stops from a course and goes to another course, change of address of the student, if the absences the student has had, and the updating of the fees that your student has paid.
The educational institution has an extra administrative work reporting about.
They do, but they're actually licensed and registered to be able to offer. Not all education providers can offer studies, and plus an education provider may have 50 different courses, and they may only be registered and licensed to provide 2 of those to international students. Even in high schools, there are certain high schools who are not registered and cannot accept high school students, international students.
Do we have different levels of acceptance of student visas?
Oh, we do. Assessment, we call it, not acceptance. It's what we call AL1, which is assessment level 1, 2 and 3. The 4 and 5 used to be there, they're gone. We got rid of those. Level 1 is basically, you could say, countries of the EU and the countries that are with the European Community, USA, Canada.
Okay. We need to take a break, and we're going to continue with those levels after the break. Thank you for staying with us. It's a very, very interesting topic. We're going to continue about student visa in Australia. Welcome back to the topic of the day about the student's visa in Australia. We are to the point discussing the levels of assessment, and we did say that the level 1 is the easiest one with less screening, but there are the 2 levels. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. What we should explain is that levels are according to the risk of the country. So the higher the risk, the higher the number of the level. And the risk is weighed against if there is high incentive for people to not go back to that country they came from, or there's a high movement out of the country, so there'd be an incentive for them to move out and not go back. So they look at country factors in order to set low and high risk countries. So we covered the 1 level earlier. Level 2 and 3 are countries with a higher risk, with 3 being the highest risk. We used to have a 4 and 5. We got rid of those levels. We actually had the 5 empty.
All right.
Anyway, so what happens is they actually are very much more strict on the assessments. Okay, so while a level 1 needs to declare certain things, a level 2 needs to actually evidence them and show them with their application.
Okay, declaration is not enough.
No, but pointing out, even with level 1, where there is a declaration, immigration can certainly come back and say, I want evidence.
That's right, but they don't have to. Only if they sort of, So with if we go on then to level 3, now the list of countries is very long on all levels, so somebody can get onto the immigration site and check out where their country is. And it counts as far as the passport is concerned, not where you're living. So if you do have 2 passports, and one is a level 2 and the other is a level 1, I recommend you use the level 1 passport to enter Australia. Okay, that's a good recommendation. So level 3, for example, have got restrictions on what they can study as well. They can't study more than 50 weeks of an English course. So they're coming here to study English, while a level 1 student may do 2 years course of English, go through all the different levels. Somebody from a level 3 country can only do 50 weeks under that visa. When it comes to doing other vocational studies, they have to have an IELTS certificate for their English. While in other cases, the university judges the English. Now, level 3 and level 2 can become level 1s for specific courses, and we're talking about university degrees. So if somebody from a level 3 country wishes to enter into a university degree studies, they actually start being assessed as a level 1, but that is up to the university. So the university has accepted the student, they have gone through that process that immigration would otherwise go through to determine their qualifications, their background and so forth, and the university says, I am enrolling this student because they are strong enough to follow my course, then their visa application is assessed as a level 1. So immigration in itself sort of is looking more for the university level sort of students, make it a little bit easier for them.
Yes. Well, they are more expensive courses, so it's a lot more difficult for people to misuse, in inverted commas.
That is correct.
The important thing to note is that there was at a certain time people were enrolling into universities, so they would get a level 1 assessment and then diverting to a diploma or a certificate. Well, guess what? They now cancel your visa if you do that. So that doesn't happen anymore.
Okay, that's all right. On the as a student now, what are or if there are any opportunities that Australia can give me as a graduate if I finish my course, if I finish my 4 years degree, or my master's or whatever that level. Do you have any opportunities of work experience or extend my visa, or how that works?
There is a visa program which I would call the extension or the follow-up of the student visa program that you could even combine them into one. Purpose of the student visa program is for you to obtain qualifications to proceed into a career.
Yes.
Now, proceeding into a career also requires that you start getting work experience.
Correct.
Because just your certificate won't get you far.
Correct.
So, taking the student visa program and then the temporary graduate program, visa program, that combines the two, because it says you have come to Australia, you have completed studies, you have obtained qualifications. I will now give you the opportunity to be able to work in Australia for 18 months to 4 years. It all depends on what you studied.
That's a fair sort of amount of time.
Yes, I would say, like the most common, the 18-month one, because the 2 years is completing university studies.
Yes.
It does give you that chance of getting work experience. So they're saying, you studied, you got your qualifications, your diploma, now get some work experience in the market, and then you can go back home with both.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're a fully qualified professional.
Yes.
What needs that, however, there are criteria. That's not an automatic thing. Okay?
Yes.
So first thing that you have to cover is that your course, your relative to the nominated occupation you're going to state, has to be a minimum of 92 weeks. Okay. So I can't do, for example, 30 weeks of English and 62 weeks of motor mechanic and say, okay, now qualify for that. You don't. Yes. It has to be 92 weeks on the actual occupation.
Now, how good, from the other side of the coin, how good Australia is to motivate skillful people remain in Australia and help here?
Well, look, we've got to look at, big enterprises, okay, and even smaller companies sometimes, who do need university graduates, do look into the universities and the students, and just like they assess the possibility of employing or bringing into their company an Australian student, they do look at international students as well. So yes, offers have been made to international students who are completing degrees. It could be just normal bachelor degrees, it could be masters, because it's of interest to the specific company, the expertise that they've got. So yes, it can lead you into a skilled migration.
So the migration is not going to prevent that happening?
Well, immigration, you still have to meet the requirements of a visa application. Okay? Nothing is automatic in visas.
Yes.
People make that mistake. They think I'm going to study for 92 weeks and I'm automatically going to get 18 months. It doesn't happen. You have to have 6 in IELTS. Yes. You have to nominate an occupation that's on the list. So there's a lot of things you need to meet.
Well, that's why we have the registered immigration agents, isn't it?
That's why we try and help people.
Kelly, thanks for being with us. It was excellent to have you. This is the 3rd program that we have together, and I think we're going to run at least one more on this subject. And thank you for giving us an insight of the student visa today. We're going to be back with Nat Chat next week at the same time. Thank you for staying with us.